Picture it. It's Friday night in 1989. You're walking under the blue and yellow neon of the Blockbuster video sign. Inside, you had two choices. Take a gamble on a dusty flick, or grab the sure thing. In the 80s and 90s, the surest thing in Hollywood was a guy named Tom. Before he was the voice of a generation or a two-time Oscar heavyweight, he was the king of the high-stakes, slow-burn comedy. Today, we're opening the vault on 17 facts about Tom Hanks' legendary run from 1980 to 1999. We're talking about mermaids, possessed houses, and the $40 million gamble that changed the business forever. I'm Moonlight Peterson, and this is Bite-Sized Nostalgia. Before the Oscars and the life is like a box of chocolates wisdom, Tom Hanks had to survive Staten Island. Most people point to Splash as the start of his career, but the real origin story is the 1980s film He Knows You're Alone. It was a gritty, low-budget slasher movie filmed in just 15 days. Tom played Elliot, a character who was originally destined for the chopping block. But even back then, the Hanks charm was a literal lifesaver. The director liked his everyman energy so much that he rewrote the script on the fly just to keep him alive. Imagine, if Tom hadn't been so likable in 1980, we might have lost a legend before he ever stepped on that giant piano. Tom didn't get the lead in Splash because he was a heartthrob. He got it because he was the only guy brave enough to kick the Fonz. In 1982, Tom guest starred on Happy Days as Dr. Wayne Twitchell, a disgruntled classmate with a 20-year-old grudge. Apparently, Fonzie had pushed him off a swing set when they were 8 years old, and Twitchell spent his entire adult life earning a black belt just to get even. In a move that made TV history, Tom became the first character to actually strike the Fonz, sending him flying through the stained glass window at Al's Diner. Happy Days writers were so impressed by Tom's everyman intensity that they told Ron Howard, "This is the guy." Originally, they wanted him for the wise-cracking brother role in Splash, eventually played by John Candy. But Richie Cunningham himself saw something bigger, and Tom was cast as the lead, Alan Bauer. Here's a fact that proves the power of the 80s. Tom Hanks didn't just change Hollywood, he changed the U.S. Census. Before Splash became a monster hit in 1984, Madison wasn't a girl's name, it was a street in New York City. There's that classic scene where Daryl Hannah's character sees the Madison Avenue sign and decides that's who she is. At the time, it was a joke in the script because the name was so unfeminine. But after audiences saw Tom fall for a mermaid named Madison, the name exploded. It went from virtually non-existent to the second most popular girl's name in America by 2001. Thousands of people walking around today are named after a New York street sign, all because of a movie about a guy and a fish. The house from the Money Pit wasn't a movie set. It was a real 1898 colonial mansion on Long Island known as Northway. At the time of filming, it was owned by Eric Ritter, a published in 1952 Olympic gold medalist. But here's where life starts imitating art. The couple who bought the house years later for $2.1 million said the place was in such bad shape they could have filmed a sequel. They spent a staggering $5.9 million on renovations, hiring a crew of 30 people to work on it for over a year. And in the ultimate money pit twist, after listing it for as high as $12.5 million, they eventually sold it for just $3.5 million in 2019. It turns out, even in the real world, that house was one serious coin eater. If you're looking for the most successful romantic comedy in Tom Hanks' career, it's not Sleepless in Seattle or You've Got Mail. It's a 1985 flick called Volunteers. While filming in Thailand, Tom reconnected with his co-star Rita Wilson. But this wasn't their first meeting. They actually met 4 years earlier on the set of Booze and Buddies, back when Tom was still wearing a wig and a dress for a paycheck. It took the heat of the jungle and a few years of growing up to finally spark that flame. They married in 1988 and have been the gold standard of Hollywood couples ever since. Box office hits come and go, but for Tom, the biggest prize in his vault wasn't an Oscar, it was meeting Rita. If there's one image that defines 80s cinema, it's Tom Hanks jumping on that giant floor piano at FAO Schwartz. But here's the bite-sized secret. You couldn't just walk into the store and buy that piano. The original store model was too small and didn't have the right range for the heart and soul duet. Director PennyMarshall brought in designer Remo Saraceni to build a massive 7-foot custom prop specifically for the film. And get this, there were no stunt doubles or clever editing tricks here. Tom and Robert Loggia spent weeks practicing the choreography until they could play the song perfectly with their feet. It wasn't just a prop, it was a performance that turned a toy store into a cinematic landmark. If you think you've seen everything in the Hanks vault, I have 3 words for you: City of Crime. To promote the 1987 reboot of Dragnet, Tom and Dan Aykroyd didn't just do talk shows, they dropped a full-blown rap single. Picture this, a young Tom Hanks in a suit and shades, rapping in character as Pep Strebeck, while performing high-energy choreography by none other than Paula Abdul. It wasn't just a gimmick, it played over the closing credits and even got a high-budget music video. It's 5 minutes of pure, unadulterated 80s cheese that proves Tom was willing to do anything for the bit. Yes, Tom Hanks technically has a rap career, and honestly, it's 100% gold. In 1989, we almost saw the unthinkable, the death of Tom Hanks. In the original script for the cult classic The Burbs, his character, Ray Peterson, was actually supposed to be murdered by the creepy Klopex in the final act. But as filming went on, director Joe Dante noticed something. The audience didn't just like Ray, they were Ray. Dante realized that killing off the guy who was quickly becoming America's dad wouldn't just be a dark twist, it would be a box office disaster. They made the call to rewrite the entire ending on the fly, turning Ray from a victim into a neighborhood hero who discovers the bodies in the trunk. It was a pivotal moment in movie history, the day Hollywood officially decided that you don't mess with the Hanks charm. If you ask Tom Hanks which one of his roles was the most physically punishing, you might expect him to say Castaway or Saving Private Ryan, but nope. It was the 1989 buddy cop classic Turner and Hooch. Why? Because you can't give a script to a massive dog. Tom's co-star, a French Mastiff named Beasley, was a complete wild card. For that iconic stakeout scene in the car, Tom had to stay in character for 16 straight hours. He wasn't just acting, he was reacting in real time to whatever Beasley decided to do. The drool, the barking, the sudden lunges. Tom later said it was the most exhausting thing he'd ever done because he had to be on every single second just to catch one usable frame of film. It wasn't a movie, it was a 16-hour battle of wills. If you've ever watched the 1990 cult classic Joe vs. the Volcano, you probably felt a physical ache just looking at Joe's office. The flickering fluorescent lights, that soul-crushing drab gray, and the American Panoscope logo. It's the ultimate vision of corporate hell. But that sea of dullness wasn't just a set designer's imagination. Writer and director John Patrick Shanley based it on a real job he had at 18 years old. He worked in a factory that manufactured, and I'm not making this up, artificial testicles, among other things. Shanley said the sheer absurdity and gloom of that factory stayed with him for decades, and he used that same sterile yet strange energy to create Joe's world. That sense of sterile, clinical misery is exactly what you're seeing on screen. Suddenly, Joe's decision to jump into a volcano doesn't seem so crazy, right? By 1992, Tom Hanks was one of the most recognizable faces in the world. But for A League of Their Own, director PennyMarshall had a problem. He was just too cute. To play Jimmy Dugan, the washed-up, alcoholic ex-slugger with a bad attitude, she needed him to look like a guy who'd spent a decade eating stadium hot dogs and drinking his problems away. Tom took the challenge literally. He put on a whopping 30 pounds for the role. His secret weapon? Frequent trips to a local LA ice cream parlor and a seafood diet. He traded his leading man jawline for a believable manager's gut. Also, he could look us in the eye and deliver the most iconic line in sports cinema. "There's no crying in baseball." It was the first time we saw Tom disappear into a character's physique, and it wouldn't be the last. If you want to see the sheer dedication of Hanks, look at the 12 months between 1992 and 1993. Tom went from packing on 30 pounds of ice cream weight for Jimmy Dugan to a transformation so drastic it shocked audiences. To play Andrew Beckett in Philadelphia, Tom had to drop nearly 35 pounds to portray the physical toll of his character's battle with AIDS. He went from being plumped up for baseball to looking hauntingly gaunt in those courtroom scenes. It wasn't just about the scale, though. Tom later said that the weight loss helped him tap into the vulnerability and exhaustion the role required. It remains one of the most intense physical yo-yos in Hollywood history, and it ultimately led him to the podium for his very first Oscar. In 1994, Tom Hanks made the boldest move of his career. When Forrest Gump started running over budget, Paramount was ready to pull the plug on some of the film's most iconic scenes, including that legendary cross-country run. Instead of letting the movie get gutted, Tom made a gamble that changed the business. He gave up his traditional multi-million-dollar salary and told the studio to keep it. In exchange, he negotiated a percentage of the film's gross receipts. He essentially bet his entire paycheck on his own performance. That gamble didn't just pay off, it exploded. Gump became a global phenomenon, and Tom reportedly walked away with a staggering $60 million. He bet on himself, and the world fell in love with a box of chocolates. When you see Forrest Gump jogging across the Monument Valley Desert or the bridges of South Carolina, you might think you're looking at Tom, but look closer at the legs. For those wide-angle running shots, the man in the red hat was actually Tom's younger brother, Jim Hanks. The production needed a body double who could perfectly mimic Tom's signature, slightly stiff-legged running style. And who better than the guy with the same DNA? Jim stepped in as a running stunt double, allowing Tom to save his energy for the heavy emotional scenes. It wasn't just a cost-saving measure. It was a way to keep the Hanks energy consistent across thousands of miles of film. We go from running across America to the deep reaches of outer space. After his 1995 role in Apollo 13, Tom's public support for NASA and space exploration became legendary. He didn't just play an astronaut, he became a champion for the final frontier. In honor of that passion, the scientific community gave him a tribute that's literally out of this world. There's an asteroid floating in the main belt between Mars and Jupiter, officially registered as 12818 Tom Hanks. While most stars are happy with a piece of a sidewalk in Hollywood, Tom is one of the few humans with a permanent piece of real estate orbiting the sun. It's a fitting tribute for a guy who spent the 90s reaching for the stars and actually catching them. We all know Tom is the voice behind the world's most famous cowboy Woody, but here's a bite-sized secret. If you owned a Woody doll in the 1990s and pulled that string, you actually weren't hearing Tom. You were hearing his brother, Jim Hanks. Voiceover work for toys, video games, and theme park attractions is a massive time commitment. And with Tom's schedule in the 90s, there simply wasn't enough hours in the day to get to the recording booth. Tom admitted it, saying there are only so many computer games and video things, and Jim just works on those all year long. It's the ultimate family business. Whenever the cowboy needs a voice and Tom is busy winning Oscars, Jim steps into the boots and keeps the magic alive. Before a single frame of Saving Private Ryan was shot in 1998, Steven Spielberg put his cast through a literal hell on earth. He sent Tom Hanks and the rest of the squad to a grueling 6-day active-duty boot camp, led by legendary Marine Captain Dale Dye. They were cold, they were exhausted, and they were pushed to their breaking point. But there was one notable exception, Matt Damon. Spielberg intentionally kept Damon away from the mud and the misery, letting him relax while the others suffered. Why? because he wanted the cast to feel a genuine, deep-seated resentment toward the guy they were tasked with saving. When you see the squad looking frustrated or bitter towards Private Ryan on the screen, you aren't just seeing great acting, you're seeing the real-life grudge of a crew that spent a week in the trenches while the new guy was back at the hotel. It was a brutal bit of psychological warfare that made the movie a masterpiece. They say Tom Hanks is the guy who taught us that life is like a box of chocolates. But looking back at his legendary run through the 80s and 90s, it's clear he knew exactly which ones to pick every single time. From the slapstick comedy chaos of the 80s to the Oscar-winning gravity of the 90s, he didn't just build a career, he built a time capsule for us all. Now, I want to hear from you. Which bite-sized Hanks moment is locked in your personal vault? Was it the FAO Schwartz piano jump, the absolute collapse of the Money Pit tub, or that drool-soaked car ride with Hooch? Head over to our socials and let us know. For Bite-Sized Nostalgia, I'm Moonlight Peterson, and for us, it was never just a run, it was a frequency.